Hello dear students, welcome back to another video lesson. We are in grade 12 and the topic that we'll cover also will define the network with OSI model. The page 32 and week number 9, lesson number 10 and instructor Muhammad Mustafa Bayat. In previous version we have studied that we have physical layer, data link layer, and network layer. Today we will continue our lessons from layer 4 or transport layer. As it's clear, the name shows that transport layer, this layer ensures error-free transmission. It means when the data transfer from one computer to another computer, so it shouldn't be any error. You shouldn't have any error. The data should send correctly from one computer to another computer or between the hosts, we can say, through a logical addressing. It means it's not physical addressing, through a logical addressing. Therefore, it manages the transmissions of messages through layers 1 up to 3, physical, data, and network layers. The protocols that are categorized by this layer breaks up messages. It breaks up the message, the frames that are created, send them through the subnet, different networks, and ensure correct reassemble at the receiving end. For example, here's a computer. Let me open Painting, or we can say Paint program. Okay, pretend that we have a network in here. This is a computer and another computer in here. We have clouds. There we are routers in here, different routers. Okay, and this is this router for this, and this is another router for this. And these routers are connected with each other like this. Pretend that this is a cloud. Okay, like this, like this, like this. It's a network, and this computer wants to send the data to this computer. I've told you that this is what it's a packet. So this packet, it needs to divide into different frames or packets. Okay, it needs to divide into segments, or we can say messages. Should change. For example, this is the data. It will rename it number 1. It will rename it segment 2, and it will rename it segment number 3. So segment 1 maybe goes from this way, because segment number 2 would go through this way. It shouldn't be loaded. If segment 3, for example, if this way is loaded, it will go to from this way up to it arrives to this computer. This arrive receives the segments. For example, it receives number 3 first. It receives then number 1, and then number 2. So it should reassemble the segments to create the package. For example, say, yeah, I have received number 1, I have received number 2, and also I have received number 3, and it will create one packet like this. It's a packet. Well, like a packet, we can say, like a packet. And these protocols that are categorized by this layer break up messages and send them through the subnets. This is the subnets, I mean different networks, different ways or routes. Ensure the correct reassemble at the receiving end, making sure that there is no duplicates or lost messages. No one is lost. This layer contains both connection-oriented and connectionless systems, which will be covered later in the book. Okay, just in here we are talking inbound and outbound. Ports are controlled by this layer. When you think ports, think the transport layer. Okay, from which port it goes, from which port it comes, from which port it goes. Inbound and outbound is very important. So it's the work of transport layer. Let's talk about the 5th one. I mean layer 5, session layer. This layer governs the establishing, termination, and synchronization. It will terminate, I mean it will end the transmission, and synchronize the transmission of sessions within the OS operating system, over the network, and between the host. For example, when you log on and log off, this is the layer that controls the name and address database from the operating system or NOS or NetBIOS networking basic input output system works on this layer. It means from which network comes, from which network it goes, from which device it comes, from which device it goes. It's very important for us that we understand that this layer, means session layer, it set or establish the termination, establish the connection, and terminate. Yes, this is done, and we need input or sometimes we need output. Number 6, layer, presentation layer. As name's clear, this layer translates the data format from sender to receiver and various operating systems that may be used. Concepts include code conversion, data conversion, and file encryption. Redirection works on this layer, such as mapped network drives that enable a computer to access file shares on a remote computer. Okay, most of the times we say that this layer, in presentation layer, it translates the data format from sender to receiver, translated. When the data are sending to this computer through this transmission layer, takes controls that these are sent the data correctly. It takes the physical layer, then the data link layer, then to network layer. According to the network layer, session layer set the connections. In here it said yes, the data is received correctly, and we convert it and translate it to this packet. The packet translation isn't happening here, that what data are sent to this layer. I mean it present completely, it is text, it is graphic, or it's what, and it will show and send to the through the application layer. For example, as we know, applications, for example PowerPoint, YouTube that we are using, or any channels, any presentation layer that we are using, applications that we are using, this layer is where message are created, and therefore packet creation, the packet are created begins. DB access, any database access is on this level. Any user, it means like me, protocols such as FTP and SMTP, Telnet, and RAS works in this layer. For example, suppose that you're using Outlook Express. Okay, think about the examples. you're using the Outlook or you're using the YouTube. You type a message and click send, like in WhatsApp. This initiates SMTP, message transport protocol, send that mail message down through the other layers, yeah, breaking it into packets at the network layer. In network layer, it creates the packets, and so on. This layer is not the application itself. It's not an application, but the protocols that are initiated by this layer. How the data created, how the data created in the packets. So it's the work of applications that application decides. So I mean this application send messages through the presentation translate them, and Sejan set the connection, transport is responsible that from which networks transport, it transfer the data according to logical and physical layers with protocols, network layers, from which network it should goes, from which LANs it goes, data link, the data should transfer through the link correctly, and physical address take this and receive them, take the packages, take the frames. They are very important, and these are 7 layers that we should understand that for establishing a network we need these concept of these 7 layers. I hope that you can understand about the concept of these layers. Thanks for you watching. Don't forget to send your nice comments, share the video, and subscribe for next videos.